I'm sure we'll talk about this more this weekend. I was listening to the weekly Dartscast this morning, and they were talking about Peter Wright's win in Hildesheim. I think that it could come to be that is the weekend we talk about, well, Peter Wright got back in the winner's circle and got back to winning ways, and he's brilliant at the Grand Prix or the Worlds or whatever. He may not. I reckon he almost certainly wouldn't have had those opportunities were it not for the change in the qualifying criteria. That might have saved Peter Wright's career, the change on the Euro Tour this year. Great point.
Hello and welcome to an episode of the Weekly Dartscast in association with Darts Corner. I'm Alex Moss, and alongside me as always, he is the Darts Driver King, the Darts statistician, Burton, DeWitt. How are you doing?
I'm doing just superb. I might have used that word last week. I need to just come up with a list of S words for Sexy September so that I can do a different one each week. But I'm satisfied. I'm satisfied with the sensational standard of at least some of the professionals on tour. How are you, Alex?
I'll try and think of a few S words to follow you. I think Sunday morning I was shattered. Today I'm feeling a bit more satisfied. I've had a bit more rest. Doing well here, thank you. Got back from Amsterdam in one piece, and yeah, got to say it was a brilliant trip, some great company, first time visiting the Netherlands, and I'll certainly be going back, that's for sure. A great few days, and you're going to have to sign up to the Patreon if you want the raw and uncut story of the weekend and how Chizzy got on in Amsterdam. But great to be back and talking some darts, and I've got a bit more energy after watching the final session of the World Series finals at home on Sunday night. Luke Littler putting on a show, beating Michael van Gerwen and Michael Smith, both by 11 legs to 4 to win yet another title. And I'm sure we were going to talk about him throughout this show, but we are going to start the show with our question of the week, sponsored by Condor Darts, and it is: who do you make as favourite right now to win the 2025 PDC World Darts Championships? And the option that we've put on our poll: Luke Humphries, Michael van Gerwen, Luke Littler, or other. Who are you going for, Burton?
Well, I'm definitely not going for Dave Chisnell. No, but I will talk about Chizzy a little bit in a little bit. I think I have to go Luke Littler right now, and I'm not going to say I would make him a heavy favorite because, especially between the two Lukes, there's not that much separating them on current form. You know, it just depends on who finds their best game on the day, and whether it's, we'll see what the seeding ends up being. It could be a quarterfinal match, it could be a semifinal match, it could be a final if the Lukes keep winning, and then it just becomes who finds it on the day over best of 9, 11, or 13 sets. But I think overall Luke Littler's doing that a little bit more, and I think youth is on his side in that there's really no concern about him being able to keep up the mental strength needed to win long matches over a longer period. Not that Luke Humphries is old, he's still young, but it's harder and harder to remember being a 17-year-old with each passing year. But at least you call me the Strava King with each passing mile when I'm running. I remember how much more I'm having to exert to get those miles in than I did when I was 17. The mental strength to continue to perform at your best under pressure and when you're tired is much easier when you're 17 than even when you're 27, let alone, well, I'm not 37 yet, but we'll say 37 to keep the last digit the same throughout all those. But beyond that, Luke Littler's just been phenomenal. He's won nearly a third of his events that he's played this year. It was a third before he went out to Mike Kyvenhoven in Players Championship 21 today. So it's just under a third. And that includes 2 televised events, including the one with the biggest prize fund of any so far this season in the Premier League. And of course, this past weekend in the World Series finals. It includes a bunch of Players Championship events now, 3 more than anyone else so far this year. It includes a pair of World Series events, and it includes a pair of Euro Tour events. And he's come close to winning a few other events. It took Peter Wright throwing the most ridiculous set of legs to deny him of a Euro Tour title, a third Euro Tour title a couple weeks ago. I just think that has to make him the favorite. Luke Humphries isn't far behind that. And Michael van Gerwen, who we'll talk about a bit, now finally got that title. We'll see what that does to his confidence. And there are other players as well who are playing well enough. But there's only one who can be the favorite right now. and that is the teenager, that is the Premier League champion, that is the newly crowned World Series champion, and the man who was probably the best player in the World Series events this year. That's why he was the top seed, and that's Luke Littler. So that's who I'm going with.
Oh, yeah, it is an interesting one, and this pretty close on our poll on Twitter at the moment between two of the four options, and it is the two names that you would expect. Luke Humphries, 52% of the vote, Luke Littler, 41%, and 3% going with Michael van Gerwen, 4% going with other. And I'll give a mention to one of our sponsors, Quiff, who work in decimals on their bets, and this Luke Humphries at 2.95, Luke Littler at 3.20, and Michael van Gerwen at 5.55. But the title sponsors of the PDC World Championship, Paddy Power, they're agreeing with you, Burton. They've gone with Luke Littler, 9-4 favourite, Humphries at 3-1, Van Gerwen at 7-1. And I've got to agree with our listeners, it is between the two Lukes, Humphries and Littler. They are the two players who contested the last final at Ali Pali, and already 9 months ago now. That the year's flown by, hasn't it? But I think there are a few factors to consider. One of them, you mentioned about the draw, how the draw is going to work out. Where's Luke Littler going to be seeded? We know Luke Humphries, he'll be the number one, but Luke Littler, he could end up anywhere in that draw. I think he's provisionally number 14 at the moment, but you expect that number to come down a few more over the next few months. But a couple other factors I'm going to consider here, and I'm looking at the body of work from both players since that final. And Luke Humphries, he's had runners-up finishes at the UK Open, the Premier League. He's won the World Cup, the World Match Play. That's just looking at the big TV events and his best results. And then Luke Littler on the other side of the coin lost that classic quarter-final to Damon Heta at the UK Open. Then he's won the Premier League. He's just won the World Series finals as well. So comparing those two, I think I'd give the edge to Humphries, although that is up for debate. You could make an argument for Littler there. But the next factor, and this is more, I think, on Humphries, is how he fares in particular in the lead up to the World Championship and trying to defend these major titles. He's got the Grand Prix, the Grand Slam, the Players' Championship finals. That's going to be a whole new experience for him going into these majors as the holder and attempting to replicate what he did 12 months ago and win the titles. So if he goes and defends one or two of them, then that's another big tick in the box for him going into Ali Pali. On the other side, if he loses early in all of them, then there could be question marks may appear when it comes to defending these titles. But I think they are very close in the betting. Some have got Humphrey, some have got Littler. You could make a compelling argument either way. But right now, I'm going to go with Humphries. I'm sticking with him. That match play win and the World Cup, okay, I know it's a pairs event, but I think they carry a greater weight for me. And the world's, it doesn't get any bigger. So I'm giving the slight edge to the reigning world champion and world number one. I'm sticking with Humphries.
We talked about Luke Littler winning the World Series finals, but it was also a first singles major final, depending on how we define major, for Michael Smith since he became world champion on the 3rd of January 2023. I know he would fall into other in the poll we had, but how much can Bully Boy take away from the weekend? And for those who don't know, as of when we're recording today, of course, is Bully Boy's birthday.
Yep, happy birthday, Michael Smith. It's a strange one, I think, with Michael, because if you listen to his interview after he lost that final to Luke Littler on Sunday night, at one point he was saying, I was lucky to be in the final, which you can certainly say, can't you? He survived a match start in the first round against Jose de Souza. I think it was 6 match starts against Westphal Nyman in the second round. Those 2 matches both on the Saturday, and then there was 3 more match starts against Rob Cross that he survived in the quarterfinals on Sunday. And he got past Peter Wright pretty comfortably, 11-6 in the semi-finals, but he was fortunate to dodge all those bullets and be in the final on Sunday night. And it brings me to a few lines that Peter Wright said to us on the show last week when he called in. He said about needing a bit of luck to win, but also you make your own luck. And he mentioned Michael Smith when he was talking about players at the top level of the game right now and trying to keep up with them. And he wasn't sure how Michael was going to perform after his holiday, because this past weekend, that's the first time we've seen him play, I think, for 4 weeks since the last World Series events in Australia and New Zealand. And 4 weeks on, there were some visible signs of rustiness from the Bully Boy. You only have to compare the averages of the 2 finalists, Michael Smith, 94, 87, 103, 96, 92, Littler, 103, 102, 102, 107, 102. It was a much closer together sample size there, but I think despite it being an up and down weekend, surviving all those match starts, Michael Smith, he can certainly take some things from the weekend. He said himself it puts him in good stead, and now he is going to get on the practice board, practice hard for the rest of the year. And he went straight from Amsterdam to Wigan for those two Players Championships this week. And again, we saw some up and down performances, a couple of last 32s. But right now, I think for Michael Smith, it's match practice. That's what he wants. And the more he can bank now, the better. We've talked about it a few times. The schedule these days for the top players, it's relentless. And if you can manage that schedule, take breaks, skip events, then it is going to be worth it in the long run. So to get to a final probably wasn't expected for Michael Smith, especially after surviving all those match starts during the tournament. But I think coming up short in the final, that's going to give him that little G up to say, okay, I got to a final after a month off. Imagine what I'm going to be like in a month's time when I've got a lot more match practice in the bag, more time on the dartboard at home in the bag as well. So, I think he can take a lot from the weekend. He's not the finished article. He's not in his best form, but he's got something to build on there. And how you go into the rest of the season now when there's bigger events that's still to come. Now he's got a chance to push on and see if he can add to that major tally that he's got.
I think the big thing for Michael Smith to take out of the weekend, and you touched a little bit on it, was that he was able to get through those last leg deciders. You mentioned the mismatched darts, but you can look at that one way that, okay, he was lucky, he was fortunate. He needed his opponents in multiple matches to miss. But another way to look at it is for long term, it should give him the confidence that his head is in the right place, that he can then come back from his opponent missing those darts and take the opportunity at his disposal and find a way to win the match. And he did that in 3 consecutive last leg matches, overcoming missed match darts from his opponent in 2 of those legs. And that's a good sign of where his head is. But overall, since he's won the World Championships, he's not been the same player. Before this weekend, in 24 matches outside of the Premier League, because the Premier League is just something completely different, because there's a title each day, but there's not the pressure of having to win matches. And outside of the Grand Prix, because that's a double-in format, he'd played 24 matches on television in major events, so again, excluding the World Series events. His median average, if you look at what his half the time he was above, half the time he was below, was a 96. That's good. That's very good. That's world class. But that's not great. That's not the level that a world number 1 should be having as his median average. It's not the level a world champion should have as his median average. And it's not what Michael Smith had been doing prior to that. And he can win with a 96. We've talked about it. If you average 96 every match, you give yourself a chance. That's what Chris Dobie did to win the Masters. That's what Joe Cullen did to win the Masters. That's what Andrew Gilding did to win the UK Open. You can win that way, but you can also lose every match or almost every match doing that. And that's where he was. And that also means half the time he was below 96, which means half the time he was playing at a level that made him eminently beatable. And that's, I think, what the crux of the issue right now for Michael Smith. He's a couple points below where he would like to be and where we expect him to be and where he was when he won those 3 majors, including the World Championship, those 2 majors, including the World Championship, to establish himself as the face of the game. And this weekend, in a way, was a step in the right direction, and especially being able to win those matches under pressure is big for him, but we need to see more of it. And part of that does come down to match fitness. You touched on it. He skipped a lot of events. That's why, right now, there is no guarantee that he's going to qualify for the European Championships. He's skipped 5 of them so far, and right now he's just a fraction up, 2,500 pounds ahead of 33rd place, and that's Raymond van Barneveld. If Raymond van Barneveld wins 1 match, because he's, qualified by right. That puts him ahead of him. Now, a couple other people would have to do the same thing, but they're in similar positions. Wade, Gilding, Dolan, all of them would just have to win one match at one of the Euro Tours. And then suddenly, if all of them have done that and Michael Smith hasn't, or he hasn't played, he's down to 32nd, and it would just take one person to catch him. So he has work to do, but he's taking a step in the right direction, and he's continuing to get more comfortable as the pressure of being world number one and world champion has receded this year. I think he's improving. I think he's getting back. I think that 96 median will go up to 96.5 or 97 as he plays more matches and as he performs more like he did this past weekend. But he needs to do that. He's not the player that was world number one and world champion since becoming it, and he's good enough too.
Well, from Amsterdam, it was to Wigan for a lot of the world's best players. The Pro Tour took place over the last couple of days when we're recording. We're going to be talking about that in a moment. But before we do, let's bring in our first guest on this week's show. He is a former PDC tour card holder, a WDF number one, and the winner of the Italian Open at the weekend. Here's our chat with Brian Raman. I'm pleased to say we're joined by the newly crowned Italian Open champion and the former WDF world number one, Brian Raman. Thanks for the time again, Brian. How are you doing?
Hey, Alex. I'm doing fine. Thanks for having me in the podcast again.
Great to get you back on, and we're talking only a few days after your win at the Italian Open, your first WDF title in 3 years. Obviously, 2 of those years you've been on the PDC tour, but how did it feel to get back in the winner's circle at the weekend?
Oh, it was amazing. Like you said, I've been on the Pro Tour before. Wasn't really successful there, so I had to come back, and then you start from scratch. So it's very tough to get into the winner's circles, and I'm glad to be in there finally.
Well, we'll come back to the WDF and your current darts later, but lots to catch up with you on. I looked earlier, the last time we had you on the show, January 2022, just after you won your tour card at Q School for the first time. So take us back to those early days with your tour card and adjusting to being one of the 128.
It was tough. Before I joined the PDC, I was the number one in WDF, and everyone was expecting big things of me when I got to the PDC. And I think the pressure was just a little bit too high because I expected a lot of things from myself as well. And then it goes very, very south, and then you try too hard, and then it becomes more difficult, and that's where it went wrong, I think, in my PDC career at the moment.
Well, you mentioned being the WDF number one. I remember when we spoke back then, you were a little disappointed. It meant that you couldn't go to Lakeside as the number one seed. I'm guessing you were pretty excited when you heard the news, the PDC letting the tour card holders still go.
Yeah, I was very happy because Lakeside was one of the main things on my list to ever achieve, and to be there as the number one. It was my second World Championships with the last one of the BDO in the O2 Arena. That wasn't really special. So Lakeside was an iconic place to play, and then I was very happy that the PDC and the WDF got to an agreement.
And you went into Lakeside that year as the number one seed, a last leg decider to beat Johnny Haynes. Then the next round, a 97 average, a 3-0 win over Jared Cole. You're into the quarterfinals. Are you starting to really believe then that it could be your week?
I believed it from the very start. As soon as we got the announcement that we could play at Lakeside, I believed I could lift the title. Till this day, I never have beaten Richard Veenstra. So meeting him in the quarterfinals was always a tough task for me, and he played a phenomenal tournament. But he lost out in the semis in the semis 2-0. So I was disappointed because I thought it was Richard's year after he beat me.
Well, after Lakeside, it was back to the PDC with your tour card, and one of the highlights from those 2 years has got to be another quarterfinal, this time on the Euro Tour last September. You had wins over Rob Cross and Nathan Aspinall that weekend. What did that run mean to you?
It meant the world to me. Everyone knows that I have a shoulder injury. I had a shoulder injury, that I have an operation on it. But that time I was having lots of pain while I was playing. So I was losing the hopes of getting results in the PDC, I was not really preparing myself for the tournaments because I was just in a lot of pain, so I didn't practice. But then to get to the quarterfinals of that European tour, I was pretty close on reaching the World Championships. I was just 1 grand behind after that weekend. Then the next Pro Tours, my luggage was lost, so I didn't have my own darts, and that ruined my chances again of reaching Ellipelli. But yeah, the quarterfinal is just special. I still watch them games back because it's just, it was probably one of my biggest achievements.
Yeah, some good memories. And you mentioned your shoulder injury. I think it was a few months after that you lost your tour card, and we saw you post a picture going in for surgery on your shoulder. When did you first notice a problem with it, or that something wasn't quite right?
I always had a problem with my right shoulder. When in the night I sleep on my right shoulder, I always had a problem with it. But it went over as soon as I was moving during the day and whatever, if I just did normal things. But I think it was the start of the summer that year that the pain just kept, it just stayed. It wouldn't go away. Even when I had painkillers and everything, it was still hurting. So that's where I got to speak with a specialist. I started doing fitness, physiotherapists and everything to try and get rid of it. But it all didn't work, so we very soon knew that it was going to be an operation.
And obviously back then you've got a big opportunity to be a professional. You've got your tour card, you're playing against the world's best. Were you tempted to go in for surgery earlier, or was the plan always to wait until after you'd played your last event and that last chance to qualify for the Worlds?
No, I was always planning on playing until the very last qualifier for Ellipelli. That was the very last tournament, because I never used it as an excuse. Nobody knew about it until it was after that the World Championship qualifier, because I didn't want to show any weakness to all the other players. So it was I had an appointment the week before the World Championship qualifiers with my specialist, and he said we can do the operation now or whenever you're ready. And I said, well, I have still one more event to go. If I do qualify, then we wait till January, and if I don't qualify, we do it straight 2 or 3 days after.
And you said after the surgery it was like a fresh start and you were playing pain-free again, which is great to see. Were you back to 100% for Q School this year, or did it probably come too soon for you? How did you reflect on that week?
Q School was way too soon. I was normally not even allowed to play. My specialist said 7 weeks before I can play again, and Q School was, I think, 4 weeks after. So normally I wasn't allowed to play. I said I was going to play just 1 day to get to play the Challenge Tours and the European Tours. But it turned out I played all 4 games because I didn't want to disappoint myself, because if I just had one good day in one of the 4 that it all clicked again, then it would have been stupid to not play all the 4 days. But it was definitely way too soon. Until this day, I'm still recovering. I never took my recovery very serious until I think it's 2 or 3 weeks ago now that I started doing the physiotherapist again. I'm taking ice baths to get rid of the pain and everything. So and the recovery now is going well.
Good to hear. Yeah, we saw the picture of the ice bath recently as well, the recovery after events. We see you taking it very seriously. So what's the longest you've stayed in the ice bath so far?
12 minutes. 12 minutes is the longest. That was yesterday when I came back from Italy. So yeah, it's a challenge I put myself on every time to go 1 minute longer. So if you ask me next week, I will probably be around 15 or 16.
Good man. Well, these days, obviously, there's a lot more opportunities for players without a tour card, and we've seen plenty of you still this year particularly on the Modus Super Series. We had the back-to-back blind 180s, and I've got to mention the 93 finish, single 19, treble 8 ball. We've had Eric Clarish, your fellow Belgian, on the show before, and he was famous for his wacky checkouts. Was he the inspiration behind it?
No, it's just when I'm practicing, I always practice checkouts. I never practice my scoring. So my missus writes down like 20-25 finishes on a board, and I need to take them all out, but I try to take it out 3 times in a row in different ways. And then you start to find, let's say, easier routes. Like with the 93, if you start on 19s, you have 74 left. It's treble 8 for the bullseye, or treble 16 for double 13, and that are the kind of things I have in my mind all the time, because you have a bigger target to aim at.
That makes sense. And I've got to ask you then, what's the most wacky checkout you've managed to hit? Because me personally, on 80, I've gone treble 10 surround ball, and my friends listening, they know that if I've got 50 left, I like to throw 2 in the surround, try and hit the ball. I don't do it very often, but yeah, what's your best one?
My best one is when I have 80 left with 2 darts in hand. Usually players go top stops or treble 16, double 16. I always go for treble 18, double 13, because I really like treble 18 and I love double 13. And I got a few players upset with it, with going on 99, going 19, treble 18, double 13. Or this weekend at Italian Open against Jamie, I was in 128. Was treble 18, treble 16, double 13. So yeah, it's I can understand it's very annoying for people, for other players, but for me it's an extra boost. So that's why I do it.
Yeah, it's working for you, and we've also seen you on the WDF circuit, as we've mentioned, the Dutch Open. You won the men's pairs with Damien Mole, but you also played a part in the success of the men's singles winner Jarno Bottenberg. We had him on the show shortly after he won that, and he said that you'd taken him under your wing. So how did that come about?
I had a few youth players last year already that I was helping with the development tour, to give the guys a chance of achieving what they want to achieve and reaching their goals. It was with Dan Bastiaansen, Bram van Dijk, and Xanti van den Bergh. And I was at the Youth World Championships last year, where I met Jarno for the first time. And we had a very good chat, and we were talking about his ambitions and everything. And I found myself in his path of his success to help him. So that's where we matched together.
Not long after the Dutch Open, we saw you be very open and honest on social media, saying that you were fighting your own demons. Can you talk us through that period and how are things now for you?
It's been a very tough time, of course, with darts being very popular in Belgium. People expect a lot of things from you, and when you lose on local tournaments, you still hear it 3-4 weeks after. And I put too much weight on my shoulders from all of these things that I got very, very upset with myself. I wasn't happy in my regular life with work. Not with where my game was. I wasn't fully recovered after the operation, so I was pretty annoyed with that as well. So all these things together were just putting myself down. Luckily, I have good friends behind me that helped me through it.
Things have certainly picked up on the Oki in recent weeks. You were back on the Euro Tour as a host nation qualifier in your hometown Antwerp just a few weeks ago. The result didn't go your way, but how special was it to play in front of your home crowd?
It was very special. As soon as that winning dart went in, words can't describe how I was feeling. My missus was there during the qualifiers as well. And normally every single time I win a game or I win a tournament, she's the first person I go to. But now everyone just had to leave me for like 5 or 10 minutes because it was so special for me. My kids have been practicing the walk-on song for, let's say, 7 months now, as soon as we knew that Antwerp was having a European tour. So there was a lot of pressure on my shoulders to qualify, because if I didn't qualify, I think my kids will be very upset that they couldn't sing the song during my walk-on. To get over the line in what was a thrilling game was just special for me.
That's good to see. And after you lost on the Euro Tour on the Friday, it was plan B. You travelled over here to England to play in some WDF ranked events and had some good results over the next 2 days. So when did the idea of getting to Lakeside and committing to more of the tour this year become a focus for you?
It never really was a goal of me this year. I only set 2 goals from the start of the year. That was qualifying for the Euro Tour in Antwerp and qualifying for the ADC Global Championships. Well, that's only just announced, but being the number 1 of the Belgian Darts Tour from the ADC, that was the 2 goals I had in mind. I qualified for Antwerp, and I'm 5 points clear on the Belgian Darts Tour, so my goals for this year are already going to plan. But then I kept playing WDF tournaments just to have match rhythm and getting myself sharp and try to gain some confidence on winning things again. It didn't go to plan until last weekend, but I felt like I was getting better and better. I needed to get used to the long waiting times during the games, because on the PDC it's very strict. But yeah, it's all coming together now.
Yeah, it certainly is. More ranking points followed at the weekend with that win at the Italian Open, and you beat another good friend, Xanti Bergh, who's also going to be on this week's show. Talk to us about the friendship that you two have got together as well.
He's definitely my best friend. We know each other because of his brother Dimitri. I grew up with Dimitri, but I got closer and closer to Xanti when Dimitri was going to England, when he lived in England. And I think we see each other every single day of the week. So my kids are very into Xanti as well. Every single time when they didn't see him for a day, they ask him to call him and everything. So he's like one of the family. He's like a brother for me, and I'm very grateful that I can do all these things with him.
Well, we've got the World Masters coming up next month. That's going to be a big week of darts. The World Open, the Lakeside qualifiers are also on that week. Have you got any other events lined up before then to try and pick up some more points in?
Yeah, this weekend is the last BDT tour, so I won't be in Bridlington. What is a little bit of a shame, of course, because it's a double silver event. So a lot of people will take more points than I will take this weekend, that's for sure. So I have Bruges planned, what is in 2 weeks, I think. So that's a very important one. I won it the last time I played there, so let's try and do the same thing. And then, of course, the World Open, the Masters. And if that's not enough to qualify for Lakeside, I still have the Lakeside qualifier. But I don't really want to play them. I want to be qualified before that. But let's say I have to play them and they are not enough yet, then I can still go to Latvia and Hungary at the end of this, at the end of October. So I still have a few tournaments planned, because now I'm so close to getting to Lakeside, I don't want to let that opportunity slip.
Yes, a busy time ahead, and 2 more before we let you go. Away from your own darts, you also commentate on Darts for Belgian TV, and we've also seen you have a go at being a referee, calling Mike De Decker's game, and quite a good 180 call, I have to say. So have you had any bookings for exhibitions as a referee yet?
No, but I don't really want to be a referee. It's just on local tournaments when I always go straight to work after that local tournament. So when I lose soon, then I just wait and see who is playing well, and when they get to the final and they want a referee, I will do the refereeing, because I still have to wait before I can get to work. And that's why I do it, but I don't want to referee all the time. Just for fun, I will do it. But commentating, I really like commentating. So if there is more on that path, we will see what comes out of that.
And lastly, just circling back to Lakeside, what would it mean for you to go and qualify for it this year, get back on that stage, competing for a World Championship again after the tough times that you've had with your injury and mentally as well this year?
It will mean the world to me. every single time when I have a good achievement, I'm really proud of myself, what everyone is, of course. But doing all these things when I'm not even 100% fit is something special, because all the previous achievements I had was when I was 100% fit and when I was ready mentally, when I was very strong in my mind and everything. And now I'm not at that level that I was used to be. So if I get to Lakeside now, it's just in, 6 months' time that I qualified then. So that will be amazing.
Well, Brian, it's great to get you back on the show. Congratulations on the title at the weekend, and wish you all the best for the rest of the year and that push to get to the Lakeside at the end of the year as well.
Thank you, and thanks for having me, Alex.
Thanks again to Brian for joining us. Now continuing our look back at the last 7 days in the world of darts, and to Wigan, where we saw Players Championships 20 and 21 take place over the last couple of days. Titles for Luke Littler and Michael Van Gerwen, but which players stood out the most from you from the last couple of days of action on the Pro Tour?
Well, I mean, we'll start with the two winners, and I'm not gonna spend more than one sentence on Luke Littler because I already talked about him in the first question. But again, it goes to what I said about why he should be the favorite right now, and that's because he is right now the player who's most likely to win pretty much any event that he's in. But as far as MVG goes, his first match was average 91, but after that he didn't fall below 94.91. Basically, didn't fall below 95 across his last 6 matches, including an absolute perler against Chizzy in the final. Chizzy threatened a comeback near the end of that, but it was never really on. MVG was just playing a little bit too well, a lot bit too well for a Dave Chisnell who still was playing well himself. And it's that consistency that has been lacking. There's been I was looking through it. There were some tournaments where he put together 3-4 matches in the mid 90s, with one of those matches topping 100. But there were just as many tournaments where he would have a 103, a 101, and then in the board final average 85. And that's been the problem this year. There's been too many duds, and not just by MVG standards. You go back to 2016, if he averaged 98, that was a terrible performance. And if you don't beat him on that, he's going to win the title. That's not the duds. I mean, actual performances that anyone on the tour expects will happen and will be disappointed with. MVG's been doing that way too often. That didn't happen on Wednesday, and that's a big reason why he won the title. He had a consistency that he really has never had. I'll mention a couple other people, and one of them I said at the beginning I would talk about, and that's Dave Chisnell. I don't know what to say about Chizzy anymore. You want to believe he has a major title in him because he is such a brilliant player, but then he goes on stage and is a non-factor way too often. On the television stage, I should say, because he, just won a Euro Tour. But then he comes back, and a couple days after the disappointment, what does he do? He makes a semifinal, losing to the winner, Luke Littler. It wasn't his best performance in that semifinal off of what had otherwise been a good day. But, we can understand that it's a long day. And the following day, he comes back and makes the final, withstands a remarkable comeback from Richie Edhouse, who had been 6-2 down in the semifinal. 2 bull finishes, plus survived a couple missed darts from Chizzy to force the decider then, before Chizzy snuck it out. And he was the second best player in the final, but he still averaged a ton. He still went his 4 winning legs in 15, 15, 13, and 13. He had to play well to just not be steamrolled in that match. And that's what he did. He threw in brilliant legs and then tried to mount a comeback from there. What a couple days for Dave Chisnell off of those disappointments. I want to be wrong with what I said next week, that I do not see a major coming anytime soon for him. And by soon, I mean at least for the rest of the year. I want to be wrong. And more performances bouncing back from disappointment, like he did the past couple days, will make me wrong. And I'll mention one more person. Not a person I don't think talked about at all this year. And I don't think we really talked about him at all last year, other than when he won his tour card. But I'm going to talk about him because he just cashed on the Pro Tour for the first time all year. And he did it after missing at least a dozen darts to win his match against Graham Usher on Tuesday. And that's the Frenchman, Jacques Fabre. It's been a very, very bad year. Yes, he's not played in all the events, but he's not been able to get it done. And had a huge 5-2 lead. And then, as I said, missed at least a dozen darts to win that match. And then his opponent Graham Usher ended up missing at least 6 in the decider. But Jacques Fabre stuck with it, and he came back and he hit the dart at double in the decider after all that disappointment to finally win a match on the Pro Tour this year. So I'm going to give him the shout out for that, because that, for the same reason that I gave Michael Smith the shout out for surviving match starts, I'll give it to Jacques Fabre because it takes some bottle, especially after you've missed a dozen of your own, to be able to come back and finally get a win.
Yeah, I think that might be the first Jacques Fabre appreciation minute that we've had on the show. And Jacques is one of the 12 current PDC tour card holders that we've not had on the show. So hopefully that will go some way to getting him on before the end of the year. But yeah, looking at some of the players from the last couple of days when we're recording, and you mentioned Dave Chisnall, the powers of recovery, it continues to amaze me. A semi-final on Tuesday and then a final on Wednesday. Remarkable stuff from Chizzy. Cameron Menzies, he lost in the first round like Chizzy did in Amsterdam, a 95 average, and it meant he had to spend the rest of Saturday afternoon and evening with me in Amsterdam. A bad second prize, that is. But again, throwing some big averages on the floor, kicking off the Tuesday with a 98, 107, 108 and a 103. And the 108 against Michael Van Gerwen, a 6-2 win, is some impressive stuff. And again, pushes him closer to, if he's not already qualified for it, the World Grand Prix in a couple of weeks' time. Aside from him, Damon Heta, again, someone that played well in Amsterdam. He lost to Luke Humphreys in the second round in the last leg decider, and it was no rest for the wicked. He was in Wigan a few days later. He had a last 16 and a quarter final, and across his 9 games, well, the first 8 of them very consistent, averaging between 98 and 105, then dropped to an 88 in losing to Richie Edaus, who he also deserves a mention because he come so close to getting to his first Pro Tour final today when we're recording. He did well to battle back in that semi-final. I think he was 6-2 down to Chizzy, and then in the decider missed a double 18 for a 150 finish, got another chance, 3 more darts on the double 9, all going outside the other side of the wire, and they're all well thrown darts, just didn't go in. But again, another semi-final for Richie Edaus. Mike Kyvenhoven, he's going to be the last one that I mentioned, and his first 3 games today, 6-5, 6-4, 6-5. Then he comes up against Luke Littler on that winning run, puts him out 6-3. And I think it was a 15-game winning run that Luke Littler had. But I just had a look at the game on Dart Connect, and it was a real mixed bag. If you're going into a game with the favourite for the World Championship this year, and you're winning 2 legs in 21 darts, I think there was an 18 darter in there as well. So half your 6 legs you're winning in 6 or 7 visits, you'd say, no chance, I'm not going to win that game. But he did, 5-3 up. He had one of his best legs. I think it was a 14 darter on his throw. And you've got to take your chances when the top boys aren't performing at their best. And he did that. He ended up making the semi-finals today. And in the context of Mike's season, it's the run that's put him into the World Championship spots. He started the day outside of them. It's also put him in a spot for the Players' Championship finals. Again, was outside of those before the tournament started. And if you had that provisional first round money at Ali Pally and Minehead, it's got him on course to keep his tour card. And yeah, there's a long way to go. We've still got 9 Players' Championships, a few more Euro Tours. But today, and that win against an off-par Luke Littler, taking his chances, it could very well be a very pivotal day for him.
And I just want to apologize for Jacques Fabre because my notes auto-corrected the spelling of his name, and I was like, I realized it right after I said it. But first time we talk about him, and I don't even give him his correct name. So I apologize for that. I will blame the notes app. I did verify that it was not my typo. It did autocorrect.
He's never coming on.
Yeah, he's never coming on now. And that'll teach me to just read my notes without actually thinking. But the Euro Tour rolls into Budapest this weekend, and I'm double checking every one of your words. I expected to autocorrect to Bucharest, but no, it is correct. It's Budapest, Hungary this weekend, and there's just 4 events left now before the cutoff for the World Grand Prix. Currently, for the first time in a while. It's actually not James Wade in the final spot. It is Luke Woodhouse. But is there anyone that you fancy to make a deep run and maybe move into one of those qualification spots for Leicester?
Yeah, just a word on James Wade, because it was a couple of decent days for him this week. He's moved up a spot, as you say, up to number 15 on that Pro Tour list. A bit more breathing space for him as he looks to qualify for the World Grand Prix for what would be a 20th consecutive year, which would be incredible. And it sounds like an easy answer, but I'm going to go with the three players directly below Luke Woodhouse, who is in that last provisional Pro Tour spot at the moment. And I'll start off with Andrew Gilding. He was a late call up to the World Series at the weekend, replacing Nathan Aspinall, who wanted another weekend off before returning to action after his injury, and lost 6-1 to Wessel Nyman in the first round, but he avenged that defeat in some style this week in Wigan, the 114 average to beat Wessel by the same scoreline, and he had a 9-darter in there as well. And okay, his next game, his average dropped 28 points, losing to Luke Littler in the last 32, but putting another two good performances today in the high 90s. And I think he'll be in a good place heading to Budapest, that he could potentially go there and rack up a few wins. And we know with these Euro tours, there is more money on the line. If you can make a final session, get to a quarter final, it can push you right into that mix for the World Grand Prix. So Goldfinger, I think he's one that could have a good run. The other two players who are right in and amongst it, Gabriel Clemens, again, another one who suffered an early exit at the World Series, had a couple of steady days on the floor this week, but he seems to be playing reasonably well at the moment. It's not eye-catching stuff, but it's not far off perhaps catching fire. And don't forget, he did knock out MVG on the Euro Tour a couple of weeks ago. So he's got that big scalp fresh in the memory. And finally, Dirk van Dijvenbode, someone that we've started to speak a lot more about now. He's getting back into some of the form that he's shown before. And it's not been the best week for him either. He went out early in the World Series, didn't have the best 2 days in Wigan this week either. But I think his consistency is starting to come back, and it doesn't feel like we're seeing as many of those maybe high 80s, low 90s averages. The averages are creeping up. And again, like Gabriel Clemens, he's got some good recent memories on the Euro Tour. He made a quarter final last time out, and he looks to be playing with a smile on his face as well and enjoying the game. I saw a little clip of his game with Luke Littler today that he lost. He lost with a smile on his face, and that's something that we've not seen a lot of from Dirk in recent times. So we know he's a player that plays with a lot of energy, and when he's fired up, he can throw some frightening stuff. And yeah, I think he's heading in that right direction, and maybe this is the weekend where he makes that deeper run, gets to a semi-final or a Euro Tour final again, and puts himself in the spots for the World Grand Prix.
I think the big thing, though, that cuts against someone cutting in is right now there is a gap between the person who's in the last spot, Luke Woodhouse, and the person in the first spot outside, Dirk van Dijvenbode. And that's 5,000 pounds. That's not an insignificant chunk of change. And that's just going to make it all the more difficult. You mentioned, maybe he'll get that semifinal run, but he might need that semifinal run. That might be the only way he's going to get there, because, okay, Luke Woodhouse could easily match that with just winning a match. And suddenly that semifinal run still would not be enough. And it's even more needed by the two right behind him, Gabriel Clemens and Andrew Gilding. I think doesn't mean it's not going to happen. We've seen people win Euro Tours to steal a spot before. We've seen, when you talk about Jamie Hughes in Prague long ago to steal a spot at the World Match Play from the Jammy Dodger, Lethal Biscuit. I can't remember which nickname he was using at the time. We've seen Roby John Rodriguez make a final on a Euro Tour to shore up a spot. It has happened. It will happen. And it absolutely could happen. As you mentioned, Dirk is playing well enough. I think Gabriel Clemens is playing well enough again all of a sudden. Obviously, Andrew Gilding, he's in those Euro Tours. Just winning a match in both of them will be 8,000 pounds added to his ranking. And if he gets some wins elsewhere, who knows what it will do. Or so I guess it would be 5,000 pounds his ranking. I was thinking winning as if he was still a seed. But it is a lot to do. and most of the players currently in the spots are playing well. Brendan Dolan did not have a good week. Neither did Joe Cullen, especially Joe Cullen going out with a 79 average to Steve Beaton. And then, okay, he won a match on Wednesday, but only one, and he didn't play particularly well. And suddenly Joe Cullen is in danger. Granted, he also could very easily move into the top 16 overall again, but he just as easily could fall out of those 16 seeded Pro Tour players for the World Grand Prix. Cullen and Dolan, I think, are the two that would be most likely to drop out right now, and particularly Cullen, because they're the ones seemingly playing the worst. But it's going to need to be because of a big run from someone, and it is the three you mentioned that are the most likely. Although I'll also mention Christopher Tysky might just now be playing some good darts again, but it's going to have to be a deep run, probably a final from one of them or a pair of semis to really lift the pressure on the players ahead of them.
Now move on to our final guest on this week's show. He's another recent winner on the WDF circuit, winning the Swedish Open. Here's our chat with Xanti van den Bergh. I'm pleased to say we're joined by the recent Swedish Open winner, Xanti van den Bergh. Thanks for the time, Xanti. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you guys?
Yeah, doing well here, thank you. And it's been a great last month for you, winning the Swedish Open, your first WDF ranking title, and then following that up with a final at the Italian Open over the weekend. So how pleased are you with your recent form and results?
I'm very happy with the way I'm playing right now. The final winning Open Sweden, I was buzzing with that, and then already hitting another final, playing my best friend Brian at the WDF. Yeah, that's just amazing.
And we'll come back to those results later, but as it's the first time we've had you on as a guest on the show, let's go back to the start for you in darts. The van den Bergh name is well known in darts, so I assume it was through the family that you first got introduced to darts?
It's my daddy was a big player in Belgium at his time when I was not born yet. And then you have Dimitri, who got the talent as well. My other brothers do have the talent as well. And then you have me, and I'm playing development tours. I'm in a good spot for the Youth Worlds. Yeah, just playing darts at the moment. That's the only thing I do. And playing the WDF, getting the chances from Brian, some other guys, and just enjoying myself at the darts tour.
Yeah, glad to hear. And you mentioned your dad, Chris. We all know Dimitri, your oldest brother, a two-time major winner in the PDC. You've got two other brothers as well, Vianney and young Belly. So what was it like growing up with your older brothers and playing darts at home with them?
Yeah, it's amazing. You have seen darts getting bigger and bigger in Belgium just because of the way he's playing, the titles he's won, the majors, and you feel the darts is alive in Belgium, and that was never before. So it's just amazing, and it's all the time darts in our house. So it's just darts.
We've seen with Dimitri, he's become one of the world's best players, the first Belgian to win a PDC major. That was at the World Match Play during lockdown. Talk to us about following that tournament from home and seeing him win the title.
A lot of stress to experience what he was doing. A lot of stress. Watching his games, he was more nervous than playing by myself. So.
And I'm guessing you try and watch all of his games on TV. Have you managed to get to any of the tournaments in person as well?
I went to Alexandra Palace 2 years ago when he reached the semi-finals. Had some Euro tours in Trier. I went with him. That will be the Thingsa World Series in Amsterdam. But that are the only things I went with him. But it's always a nice experience, just playing the development tour by myself, and then joining him sometimes for going to bigger comps and seeing how it's going on there. That's a nice experience for myself as well.
Good times. And you're one of four brothers, Dimitri, Vianney, both older than you. Belly, I think, is 11. Has he started playing darts yet himself?
Yeah, he is playing from the same age as us. He started at 3-4 years old, and just playing, hanging on in the youth in Belgium, just getting bigger and bigger. He needs to get older to make some achievements and getting allowed to play the PDC Development Tour, but he's on a good way as well.
Good to hear. And well, let's get on to your darts more recently. And you mentioned the development tour. You started playing on that 2 years ago in 2022. What was that first weekend like, making the trip over and testing yourself against the world's best young players?
A lot of nervous. I had a lot of stress. And yeah, you need to gain some experience, and if you do that, you will get bigger and bigger, achieve more. But the first 2 years were just getting experience, so that's how I experienced it. I got a lot of tips and tricks from Dimitri, and he just said to me, enjoy yourself, enjoy the game, and just make some fun. And if you do that, you can go far in the tournament and getting a lot of experience.
Yeah, we've seen you building up the experience and looking at your average over the years as well on the development tour. 66 in that first year, 74 last year. I think it's around 77, 78 this year. So we've seen you progress over the years. How much has playing the development tour helped you to improve your game?
That's helped me a lot. It's a big difference just playing in Belgium local comps and playing in England and Germany for the development tour is just a big difference. You gain experience every time you go, and you just learn from your mistakes from the weekends before. And if you practice that at home, you lost maybe a game, missing a lot of doubles. You just get the feeling, and you go home and you try again, just practice, and then you go again to the development tour. It's always the same thing, but you learn every time you go. So.
And this year we also saw you go to Q School for the first time. How did you find that experience?
I was entered by my manager 2 days before Q School, so I had not the best prepare for that. I did not prepare for that, but losing my first game to Anton Osmond with 87 average, and that's, you know exactly about that moment. It's a hard world. The Q School is just not normal there.
Definitely not. Well, we'll come on to your title in Sweden in a moment, but this year it's already been a memorable one off the dartboard. You graduated and you've begun working as a specialist woodworker. How's that going so far?
At the moment, I'm not working. I'm playing a lot of darts. I will start working in 2 weeks. The 1st October, I started my first job. So I'm excited about that. Yeah, my recent win in Sweden, it was fantastic. I did not expect that at that moment. I knew it was coming, but I didn't expect that soon. But I'm very happy with that. And I'm playing a final last week in Italian 3 weeks after. Just amazing.
I know you're going to start working in a few weeks, but we've got to ask you, what's your favourite item that you've made so far as a woodworker?
A table. Managed to keep it. It's just at home. It's a little table made with epoxy, so it's nice.
Let's get on to that Swedish Open title then, because you go all the way in Malmo. You beat Tony Sorensen 6-4 in the final. Just describe the emotions you felt the moment that double four goes in and you are the champion.
Words cannot describe that moment. Just so proud, reaching my first final. That was an achievement by myself, and then go on and win the title. I can't describe the feeling I had. I was just buzzing with the win, so happy, but a lot of nervous. The last dart at double four, it was not normal. Never felt that before. And
your dad, Chris, he won the French Open during his playing career. He said after you've now won the same number of WDF tournaments as him, is the next goal to pass him and win a second one?
Yeah, I was thinking that before I played the final against Brian. I was thinking if I win this, I passed him already.
Yeah, you mentioned Brian Raman, a good friend of yours. He's on the show this week as well, and I understand he was the one that persuaded you to go to the Swedish Open that weekend. So how much of a support has he been for you?
He's my best friend. I didn't have a lot of faith and trust in myself, but he does every time. And he's dragging me to comps in Belgium because he has seen a lot of potential in me. And yeah, he dragged me to Sweden, and I think I did great there.
And then you two played each other in the Italian Open final at the weekend. Was that difficult playing against your best friend? You obviously both want to win, but you also want your friend to do well too, right?
Yeah, it was very difficult. Just playing your best friend at the WDF final. Never want to do that again.
Well, Brian won the final. That's given him a big boost towards trying to qualify for the Lakeside. You're not too far away either, with another few good runs over these next 6 weeks. Is that a big target of yours now, to try and qualify yourself?
Yeah, that's my main target. I just want to get there. If I do, it's insane. I just played a quarter of the WDF system, think I this year. So if I manage to reach the Lakeside, I'm buzzing.
And we were just talking to Brian that we know the World Masters is coming up next month. There's going to be the World Open, the Lakeside qualifiers that week as well before the cut-off. Have you got any other tournaments lined up before then to try and pick up some more points?
I'm going to the WDF in Bergh. Then the week after, I can't go to the World Open and World Masters because it's the same with the PDC Development Tour and Youth World Championship. And then after that, there is a WDF in Hungary and Letland, I think.
And I read you said as well that you want to be your own man, have your own career in darts, and you don't feel the pressure to do what your brother Dimitri has done. Is that easy to do, or is it difficult trying not to compare yourself?
I don't compare myself to Dimitri. I just want to play my own game. I just want to be my own personality and just make my own career and do something with that. That's my goal to do and achieve.
Well, you're certainly making a name for yourself. And then lastly, beyond this push for Lakeside, what else have you got your eye on for the rest of 2024? And then I guess looking into next year as well. I know you mentioned the PDC World Youth Championship. Are you going to be going back to Q School next year? Could we see you try the Challenge Tour as well?
At the moment, I ain't going back to the Q School. I'm just playing the WDF the whole year with Brian. And my goal for this year is the World Youth Championship, doing well from the youth and reaching Lakeside. That are my goals and targets for this year. But if I not manage that or not play good at the World Youth, I'm just going back the next year to the development tours, just trying to qualify myself again for the World Youth and WDF system.
Well, Xanti, it's a pleasure to have you on the show. We appreciate the time, and congratulations on that recent win in Sweden, and we wish you all the best for the rest of the year, the push to Lakeside and the World Youths at the end of the year as well.
Yes, thank you. It was a pleasure to be here, mate.
Thanks again to Xanti for joining us now. Looking ahead, the World Championship not far away, around 3 months to go before we'll be looking ahead to Ali Pali. And at the weekend, we saw Joe Comito become the 5th confirmed international qualifier for the World Championships in December. But what do you make of the list so far?
Well, I mean, it is, it's early days still right now. And okay, if Bergh's changed her mind when we have 6 already that have qualified, because she'll have done it through either the Women's World Match Play or the Women's Series Order of Merit, take your pick. But she said all along that she's going to the Lakeside. So throwing her out, that leaves just the Chinese qualifier, Zhang Jiaoshan, the 2 Nordic and Baltic Tour qualifiers, Jeffrey de Graaf and Darius Labanauskas, the Japanese Tour qualifier, Tomoyo Goto, and now the winner from the DPA Pro Tour, Joe Comito, who had a fantastic weekend down under to steal the spot. He was 7th in the order of merit or the ranking table, whatever they call it, entering the final weekend, and 2 titles and a runner-up catapulted him all the way up to the top and that debut at the World Championships. But, from the little we've seen of him in the World Series, he will need to lift his game to be a real threat there. The other players, though, we've seen a bit of. We haven't seen as much as Zhang, but he's been dominant in China for some time now. Tomoyo Goto, we've seen play some good stuff as well. But I want to mention the 2 from the Nordic and Baltic Tour. Jeffrey de Graaf, he would have qualified anyway through the Pro Tour Order of Merit based on what he's done. And he looks one of those players who could nip a title in the PDC the way he's been playing at some point this year. He's playing well enough. Darius Labanauskas, of course, a former World Championship quarterfinalist, fell off the tour after a few bad years and really, at the start of this year, looked miles adrift. That's why he didn't win a tour card. But he started to play better, and he started to play much better. And now he'll be in the World Championship. He's a difficult opponent because when he gets on, he is very consistent. And he seems to be coming back into some form. Still a lot of players still to qualify. We'll see how this list flushes out over the next few months. But already some good names there.
Yeah, I agree. There's some good names there, and it is still early days. We've not even got a quarter of the 32 international qualifiers confirmed. We are going to be talking about a tour that's coming to an end this weekend in a moment, where we're going to find out 3 more of those qualifiers. But the 5 we do have, you've got that current tour card holder Jeffrey de Graaf on there, made that Pro Tour final recently, impressed on his World Cup debut as well for Sweden. And when he went to Ali Pali last year, before coming through Q School at the start of this year, I thought he gave a good account of himself as well. So he's going to be a danger in there. You've got Tomoyo Goto. Again, we saw him at Ali Pali last year. I think he knocked out Ian White. He's come through the first ever PDJ Japan Tour this year. He only won one of the 10 events in the lead up to the finals. I think he was the 14th seed, but he ended up going all the way and winning the finals to qualify for back-to-back years at Ali Pali. Zhao Chenzong from China, he is the undisputed Chinese number 1. He's become the dominant force in steel tip darts in China. He won the China Premier League earlier this year fairly comfortably, 10-3 in the semis, 11-1 in the final. And then he also won, I think, 4 of the 7 events during the regular season. And then to get to Ali Pali, winning the China Championship, come through a hard-fought quarter-final with Ziwei Lin 2-1 before whitewash wins it in the next 2 rounds. And I know with Zong, Paul Nicholson, he said it when he's been commentating. He's one player that he'd like to see play in the Modus Super Series. Watch this space for that. I think it'd be great to see Zong maybe come over to the UK for a period of time before Ali Pali, if he can get over here, get some match practice in ahead of the World. So I think he's a player with a lot of potential. Darius Labanauskas, you've listed some of his achievements. Great to see him back at Ali Pali, but I do feel a little bit sorry for one of our guests a few weeks ago, Johan Engstrom. He was desperate to get to the Worlds for the first time, and Darius winning that last event was all that could knock Johan out, and he went and won it. But I think the sweet ferret, he's a lot of candy. He's on a mission to go one better next year and qualify. And then just lastly, Joe Comito, the only debutant so far on this international qualifier list. The DPA Pro Tour, that wrapped up at the weekend, and he was a long way off the Order of Merit leader, Jeremy Fagg, I think $1,400. But from the 3 events to get to a final and then win the last 2 to pip him to that top spot, he's going to be delighted with that, to get to come over to the UK, play in the World Championship for the first time. We've seen him a few times play the World Series events nearer and closer to home. But yeah, this is a big opportunity for him. And, stories like this, which we love to follow here about, and I'm sure there's going to be plenty more of them unfold over the coming months as we get closer to the World Championship.
And well, some of those will come this weekend, as the big weekend for North American darts coming up as the CDC Pro Tour season concludes in Brownsburg. Right now, Leonard Gates a commanding lead atop the points table. Do you think anyone can catch him, though?
Yeah, it's going to be tough, isn't it? I'll have to check this with Peter Satira at the CDC, but I believe it is 18 points for a title on the CDC tour. So if that is the case, yeah, someone could go and do a Joe Comito, win the last couple of events and get in and maybe get that top spot. But 3 events left. Leonard Gates, 101 points. He is a full title ahead of David Cameron in second on 83. Then friend of the show, a man who still owes you a beer, Burton Stobunts on 82. And we know that the top player, they qualify for the Worlds. The next highest ranked American and Canadian, they're also going to be going to the World Championships. So there's 3 spots up for grabs here. And I think the next 2 in line, Jim Long and Alex Spellman, they won the last 2 events in Niagara Falls last month. They're right in the mix as well. And looking at the averages for the season, Jeff Smith, who we saw at the weekend, he's not played an awful lot of the CDC this year. He's top of the averages. But beyond him, you've got a lot of names in there that could do some damage this weekend. You look at people like Adam Savada, who we saw debut at Madison Square Garden a few months back. Jacob Taylor, I think he's another player who on his day is dangerous. He's made a couple of finals this year, lost one with a 98 average. And this is the thing we've said before, with the pool of players in North America competing for these CDC titles, getting to events like Madison Square Garden, the World Series, that pool of players is growing, which is great to see. But I think with regards to the top spot, I think it is going to be Leonard Gates that keeps hold of it. He's got a decent lead. he has been very consistent this year as well. I think out of the, what's it been, 11, 10 events so far this year, he's only had 2 early exits in the last 32 or the last 64. The other events, 3 titles, a runner-up, a semi-final, 4 quarterfinals. It's going to take some stopping, and the other 2 Ali Pally spots, they're on the line. I think that's going to be the interesting thing to follow here, because you've got the gap between Stowe Bunce and Alex Spellman in that race to be the next best American, 7 points, and then you've got David Cameron. He's only got a 5-point lead on Jim Long at the moment, so that's to be the best Canadian. So I think they're going to be 2 interesting races to follow. But for the Soldier, I think he's got it done. I think he's just got to dot the I's, cross the T's, and he's going to be finishing top as the CDC number 1.
And then the question for him becomes, where does he go? Does he go to Ali Pally? Does he go to the Lakeside? Because he's currently the number 2 seed for the Lakeside World Championship, should he choose to go there. So maybe, it'll be an interesting decision to see how it goes. But I think that tells you, though, just how good of a year it's been for Leonard Gates. Okay, he hasn't won everything on the senior tour like he did last year, but he's done enough that he's currently a big lead in the points table in the CDC, and a big lead through all the WDF events to be the second highest ranked player in that series. And a lot of that comes down to the fact that he's won 3 events this year. No one else has won more than 2. Stowe Bunce, Jim Long, and David Cameron have each won 2. A few players have won 1. And it's probably going to take at least one of those players who are relatively close winning an event and doing well in the other event just to have any chance of Leonard Gates being caught. And even then, it would also probably need Leonard Gates to go out early. You mentioned that, if you look at averages, Jeff Smith has been top. And if Jeff Smith plays this weekend, there's no reason to believe that he couldn't win a pair of events. He's playing that well. That's, why he was the only North American player to win a match at the U.S. Darts Masters. It's why he got to the World Series of Darts finals. Jeff Smith is the best player in the circuit. He just doesn't play all of them. And I still believe that if COVID hadn't hit, we would have seen Jeff Smith have a real breakthrough in the PDC. I think he is one of the 64 best players in the world, but we never got to see him play at his best. And obviously we got to see him be in the top 64 for a while because he kept his tour card for a few years. But I don't know what he could have accomplished if things just weren't so difficult for a while, having to get to all of the events. But right now, Leonard Gates is the player who's done the most. It'll be interesting to see who might become the top Canadian. David Cameron, a narrow lead over Jim Long, and even Jacob Taylor is not too far behind. But the question is, will anyone catch Leonard Gates? And I'm going to say no. Anything else for this week?
Well, I've got to say a few thank yous before we go. Thank you to our guests, to Brian and Xanti, for their time this week. Thank you to our sponsors, to Darts Corner and Condor Darts. Remember, Darts Corner is the place to go for all your darting equipment. It's launch season now as well. Lots of brands bringing out some new darts and accessories. I think this week we've had Caliburn, Shot and Harrows all available at Darts Corner. Links in the description. Thanks as well to our sponsors, Quiff. If you fancy a flutter on the darts, head on over to the Quiff app or their website. There's a chance to supercharge your odds with Quiff. And remember, if you are having a bet, you must be 18 plus. T's and C's apply. Please gamble responsibly. BeGambleAware.org. And lastly, thank you to everyone for listening. It was great to meet a few of our listeners of the show whilst I was away in Amsterdam at the weekend. I was sat with some of Wessel Nyman's family briefly in the family enclosure on Saturday afternoon before he played Andrew Gilding later in the day, and they said that they'd listened to his chat with us on the show. So appreciate the support, guys. We'll be back next week. Lots going on. We've got the Euro Tour this weekend, more Pro Tours next week as well. So plenty of darts to enjoy. So go on, go and do it. Enjoy the darts.
Yes, indeed. It's enjoy the dart season. Let us know which players you want me to mispronounce next week. I'll try to. Well, maybe we'll save that. It'll be mispronunciation May. So, although if we record on Wednesday, it could also be wrong name Wednesday. So just let me know. I'll try to work out a way to get autocorrect to mess it up again. But thank you all for listening. We'll be back next week. Just a couple weeks now to the World Grand Prix. A couple weeks after that to the European Championships and a bunch of other stuff. And of course, the World Championships just a few months away. So let us know what you want us to discuss. Thanks to our sponsors. Thanks to both our guests this week. We know it's always good to bring in more players from around the world. So it's good to get both Brian Raman and Xanti van den Bergh on. Let us know anyone that you want us to bring on. That's part of our goal, is to not just be the Barry Hearn show. We want to have everyone on in the world of darts at some point or another, so you can learn more and be able to go to the pub and say, I might not be able to beat anyone, but I know who everyone in the world is. We'll see you guys next week.